Hi, and welcome to my channel where I make dishes inspired by some of my favorite video game characters. Today's dish is inspired by Dion from Final Fantasy XVI. Dion is quite the fan favorite from Final Fantasy XVI, and it's easy to see why. He's so elegant, kind, and noble, and becomes such a trusted ally as the game progresses. He's also the dominant of Bahamut, which is one of the coolest summons in the Final Fantasy franchise, and this rendition of Bahamut does not disappoint. Not only is Dion honorable, but he's also a strong leader and fighter, and is deservedly respected by his people and his soldiers. I loved getting to know him throughout the story, and he felt so human as you learned about his tragic family and love life. Dion is such a well-written and attractive character that I remember thinking, there's a catch, isn't it? He's gonna be evil and betray us, or something like that. But to my surprise, he really was just that good of a guy. When thinking of a dish for Dion, I knew that for his nobility and romanticism, he needed to have a dessert. He seems like the kind of person who would love to sit down with tea and a nice and delicious cake, but I felt like a simple cake wouldn't be enough. It needs something else. I found myself drawn to dragon fruit since he is the dominant of Bahamut, and with the white and black coloring of the fruit reflecting Dion's outfit, I decided a yogurt cake topped with dragon fruit and dragon fruit whipped cream would be a perfect fit. Here's the ingredients we will need. For the cake, we'll need all-purpose flour, cake flour, baking powder, baking soda, salt, granulated sugar, plain Greek yogurt, vegetable or canola oil, 3 eggs, and vanilla extract. For the whipped cream and cake topping, we'll need dragon fruit, heavy cream, powdered sugar, and vanilla extract. And I forgot to include it here, but you'll also need some honey to drizzle on the cake at the end. And before you bake, your Greek yogurt and eggs should be at room temperature, so be sure to set them out a little bit earlier before you start. To start out the cake, we'll preheat our ovens to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and then grab a 9-inch springform cake pan. Spray the pan with baking spray, then line with parchment paper, and spray again, then set aside for later. Now, in a medium mixing bowl, we'll whisk together 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 3/4 cup of cake flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Once everything is combined and there are no large clumps of flour in the bowl, set aside. In a separate medium mixing bowl, we'll whisk together 1 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, 1 1/4 cup of room temperature Greek yogurt, 2/3 cup of vegetable oil or canola oil, 3 large eggs at room temperature, and a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Again, whisk everything together until everything becomes smooth. From here, pour your flour mix into your yogurt mix and stir everything again until all is combined. Make sure not to overmix, just mix until there are no large visible pockets of flour. Once your cake batter looks smooth, pour into your prepared cake pan and make sure that the batter is in a nice, even layer. At this point, we'll put our cake in the oven to bake for about 35 to 40 minutes until a toothpick inserted into the center comes out clean. While the cake is baking, we can start making our dragon fruit whipped cream. If you've never had dragon fruit before, it kind of tastes like a very subdued mix of kiwi and melon. We'll cut and peel our dragon fruit and grab a 1/2 cup of the dragon fruit to puree. Pulse your 1/2 cup of dragon fruit until everything is smooth and liquidy. We'll also be topping our cake later with some slices of dragon fruit, so feel free to chop some up now. You can cut into wedges or cubes, whatever you fancy. For transparency, my phone did not record me making the actual whipped cream, unfortunately, so I'm going to walk you through it verbally. In a mixing bowl, you'll add 1 cup of heavy cream and then beat until the cream forms soft peaks, not stiff peaks. Once soft peaks appear, stop beating and then add in your dragon fruit puree, a 1/3 cup of powdered sugar, and a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Continue beating the cream mixture for about 2 to 3 minutes until everything is fully combined and finally stiff peaks form. The dragon fruit puree creates a fun speckled look to the whipped cream. At this point, you'll probably have some time to kill until the cake is done baking and cooling, so fill your time however you'd like. Once your cake is done baking, remove from the oven and cool on a cooling rack until it is completely at room temperature. This is important because if the cake is warm at all, the whipped cream will melt on top of the cake. If you are in a rush, you can cool the cake in a fridge, but if not, feel free to just let it sit out on your counter. Decorating the cake is completely up to you, so feel free to style however you like. You can either pre-cut your cake or cut as you serve. Spoon or pipe your dragon fruit whipped cream onto the cake, and then decorate with your slices of dragon fruit on top. Lastly, drizzle with honey, and your cake is ready to eat. This cake was a big hit in our house. The sponge is so moist, creamy, and delicious, and it is not overly sweet. Dragon fruit is such a good pairing with yogurt that the subtle taste of yogurt in the cake is a nice and refreshing combination. The dragon fruit in the whipped cream adds just a little extra touch to this light topping that I loved, and the honey drizzle adds just the perfect amount of sweetness. I think that Dion would love sharing this cake with Terrence on a rare, relaxing day, or I could see Terrence surprising him with this cake after a hard-fought battle. They'd smile as they chatted over a warm cup of tea and this soothing dessert, and they'd talk about what they envisioned for the future. I can even see a wyvern tail flower sitting in a vase on the table. I feel like Dion is the kind that would hopelessly want a second slice of cake, but would feel too bad to ask for one. But Terrence would see right through him and slip him another slice. Dion wouldn't outwardly show it, but he would be so excited inside as his fork dug into that second slice, and it would remind him of why he does what he does on the battlefield for his loved ones. The recipe card is in the video description if you'd like a more quick and concise version to give it a try. Like if you want a bite, subscribe for more geeky treats, and comment what foods Dion reminds you of. Thanks for following along.